Hi, I'm Julie Morley, and welcome to Alumni Kitchen. Our guest chef today is Dennis Baran. Dennis is a 1968 graduate of Riverside Brookfield High School, and he's also got his master's degree from the University of Wisconsin Stout. And Dennis is here today to tell us and show us and have a sample, hopefully, some soups that are made from a stock base. So we're very anxious to have your presentation, Dennis. Welcome.
Thank you. In the preparation of soups, it's important that you start with a good soup stock. Today we are going to be dealing with what they call a white stock, which can be made from either veal or chicken bones. Today we are going to deal primarily with the chicken bone stock. What I have prepared in advance, I have started a stock which has already been on for approximately 3 hours. Now, in order to prepare a good stock, you need good, clean bones. So you need to take the chicken bones or the veal bones, as you may be using, and wash them thoroughly. Place them in a pot, cover them completely with water, and then start them to boil for approximately 3 hours. Once that particular phase of the stock is complete, then you will proceed to go to the second phase of the stock, which is to add the vegetables. Now, as you are preparing some of the vegetables for your soup, you will generally have some scraps, what a lot of people call garbage, but actually it can be used to enhance the flavor of the soup stock. Here I have some onion peelings, some carrot peelings, and some celery trimmings. Now, these particular items are what will be used to boil for the next 3 hours with the chicken bones that I have in here in order to complete the chicken stock. Now, I will just simply place the items into the stock pot. Now, should you need a little bit of additional water, feel free to add additional water, and then bring it back to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, and continue to cook the chicken bones and the vegetables for another 3 hours. The items of seasoning that you can place in here, generally a bay leaf goes quite well as maybe a few peppercorns, maybe it's just a sprinkling of thyme. Continue to cook this again for 3 hours until the stock reduces slightly. Now, as I'm going to remove this temporarily and place it in the back. On the other burner here, what I have is some stock that has already been completed. After you have prepared your stock for the second 3 hour period of time, what you need to do is you need to thoroughly drain the bones and the vegetables out by straining it through some cheesecloth. After it has been strained, you need to cool the chicken stock so that you can skim the fat from the top. Now, it's important that you do that because if you do not skim the fat off the top of the stock, you will wind up with a very greasy type of a soup. Basically, the chicken fat has no particular value, but what you can do is if you're ecologically minded, you can take the chicken fat and refrigerate it and place it out for the birds in the wintertime. And they like to pick it, the chicken fat, throw a little seed on top of it or whatever, and they'll be more than happy to take it off of your hands rather than dispose of it in the trash can.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So, as I mentioned, I have already prepared an abundance of chicken stock that we can work with today. Now, we are going to be dealing with two different types of soups today. We're going to be dealing with what we call a clear soup. A clear soup is one that generally is not a thickened type of a soup. We are going to be making a couple of very, very easy soups that you can do at home with very, very little effort once you have made your chicken stock. Now, the chicken stock will stay in the refrigerator, or you can also freeze it in containers if you want to make it in a large batch and thaw it out as you need it, and then you can use it for whatever particular soup products that you might want to make. So on some cold winter afternoon when you have nothing to do, you can make a large stock pot of chicken stock, so you can use it throughout the next several months. It stays well in the freezer. One of the clear soups that we're going to make today is we're going to make just your basic chicken soup. And as I have approximately 6 cups of simmering chicken stock here on the range burner. I have prepared some vegetables in advance. I have some chopped onion and some chopped celery. But as you go through, I also have some chopped carrots here too. But as you go through, again, preparing your vegetables, if you were to be using your celery, trim the edge off as such. Make sure that your celery is washed thoroughly. Now these parts could be used for the stock pot. Basically what you need are the parts that are the edible ones. The leaves are a little bit on the bitter side, so therefore you want to make sure that the leaves go into the stock pot. So I would take these trimmings and then again place them into my stock pot. On your vegetables, you want portions that are easy to eat and not overly large. Generally on a piece of celery, if it's a good stalk of celery, you can simply cut the strips lengthwise.
And you're using a French knife, Dennis?
I'm using a French knife.
Okay.
And then simply take whatever you feel that you can manage to chop at one time. If a handful is a little bit too large, and then simply in sizes that can be eaten without getting in anybody's throat and choking them or whatever. And the same with the carrots.
Okay. You're going to split the carrot?
Split the carrot in half. It makes it a little bit easier if you cut the carrot in half first and then cut each one into an individual strip.
Okay.
Now I've taken the peels off the carrots. However, if you're doing this at home and it's just for your family, a lot of nutrition is in the skin of the carrot. Therefore, you might simply want to just wash the carrot, cut the ends off, and then use the skin and all. There's a lot of nutrients in the skin. And again, about the same size pieces as the celery. And these particular items will be taken and placed into the simmering chicken stock.
Okay.
Also have a few onions here which we'll place in there. And we'll just let that cook until the vegetables are slightly tender. Now, you don't want to overcook them, otherwise your vegetables will become very mushy. To a chicken soup that you have added some vegetables to, what you might want to do later on after the soup is completely cooked is to either put some rice in there, some cooked rice, or some people like to cook the rice right in the soup as the vegetables are cooking. Or you might want to add some noodles. And I have some cooked noodles which we can add to the stock pot with the stock and the vegetables. And we'll let that simmer for just a little bit, and then we will have our chicken soup. Now, I currently do not have any chicken meat in there. I will put the chicken meat in last so that it doesn't disintegrate into the soup. If you cook the meat in the broth too long, chances are you will wind up with just mushy meat. It'll just fall all over the place. Some people might like it that way, but
it's true.
But it does tend to disintegrate within your soup.
Okay, I have a question about the noodles. Now,
Sure.
you cook those ahead of time?
The noodles I pre-cooked,
Okay.
correct. And I did that too because if you overcook the noodles, chances are the starch from them will start to thicken the soup also.
Okay.
So I cook the noodles separately and then I add them right before serving time.
Okay.
Now, on the stove here, I'll let this simmer for just a little while longer. The second soup that we will prepare, which is a clear soup also, I have another smaller pot of chicken stock, which I will turn up. This is going to be chicken egg drop soup. Some of you may have had it in a Chinese restaurant, or some of you may have just had it at home. And it's very simple to make. All you need is just some clear chicken broth from the stock. And make sure that you have an adequate amount, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dropping some scrambled egg in there in order to boil the egg and make the little dumplings out of it.
Okay.
I'm going to set this on the side for right now. I'll put her back on the burner in a little bit.
Okay.
Also on the side here, I have a saute pan with a little bit of butter into it. And I have taken some snow peas, some pea pods, and I've trimmed them. Obviously, I missed one.
Okay.
And these will be used as the garnish for the soup once the soup is completed. Now, they just need to be lightly sauteed so that they're crunchy. You don't want them soggy. You can either do them whole, or should you prefer, maybe cut them in thirds so that the pieces are a little bit easier to eat. So I'll cut the strips into thirds.
I noticed that you're using a carbon steel knife. Do you prefer that over high carbon?
For my own particular preference, the carbon steel knife seems to hold an edge a little bit better than a stainless steel knife. I realize these days that the health department and many of the promoters of stainless steel are for the bacteria aspect of it, but my own personal preference, maybe because I've been around a while.
That's right.
I have always been used to using the carbon steel knife.
Well, you can get a good edge.
I'm simply going to place the snow peas into the melted butter and let them saute a little bit. Now, as soon as our chicken stock here comes to a boil, we're going to be making the egg drop soup. And all you need for that particular aspect is several eggs, a small strainer, preferably a colander that has some nice holes in it. If you use a tea strainer, chances are you're not going to get a nice little egg drop dumpling in there. And all you have to do is simply crack several eggs into a bowl. Now, all recipes are just a little bit different. Some recipes will call for you to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce to the egg mixture. Some say a little bit of soy sauce to the egg mixture. It's all personal preference. Whatever you feel is to your liking. Simply scramble the eggs. As such, until you get a nice smooth blend. Now, you need not add anything to it. You do need not add any water or any milk to the eggs. And these should go through the colander quite nicely. Now, as this comes to a simmer, I notice my snow peas aren't moving too fast either.
No. Are you probably more used to working with gas than electricity?
Yes. Gas, right. So, well, anyway, as these particular items are continuing to prepare themselves for us to complete the particular soup, we can move on a little bit so that we can continue with some of the other items that I have. I started earlier today a split pea soup, which is also made with your chicken stock. And what you simply need to do is you need to take a saucepan approximately the size of the one that I have for the chicken egg drop soup. 1 package of split green peas, a few diced or chopped onions, cover it with your chicken stock and bring it to a boil, then reduce it to a simmer until the peas become tender and start to disintegrate. At that particular time, you need, just for color or for flavor, I like to add some diced carrots to it. You can also add any kind of a meat product such as diced ham, chopped bacon, or anything that you might have left in the refrigerator from several days before or whatever. Okay. Just items that you would want to use as leftovers. Okay. They make nice ingredients for a soup. Now the snow peas are starting to saute, and again, you just need to do them just a little bit. You don't want to get them too well done, just so that they're tender. They will remain a little bit on the crunchy side. Okay, as we continue, there's many other different types of clear soups that you can make from your chicken stock. Use your imagination and ingredients that you have at home. Simply look through the refrigerator, look through the cupboard, see things that you need to use up. It's an easy way to make a nice hearty meal so that it can be both beneficial to you as a way to clean up some of the items left over around the house, as well as it can be very nutritious too, because usually there's meat, vegetables, and a lot of other different items. And if you use a dumpling or a noodle, you're getting some of your carbohydrates in there also. Good. Now the snow peas are ready. They don't need to be done too well, just until they got a nice, bright, shiny green color to them. I have a little too much butter in there. You really don't need that much. I either have too much butter or too few snow peas, one of the two. And I will remove this, and we will once this particular soup is completed, we will garnish it with the snow peas. And I'm going to set the chicken vegetable soup back on there.
Okay.
We are coming close to a boil over here, and it won't take long. Once you drop the egg into the simmering liquid, you don't want to cook it too much because the egg will toughen up.
Okay.
So we're getting kind of close on that.
Okay, Dennis, tell me something. I know that you are somewhat of a history maker around here. You had a particular experience that not every student had when you were here at Riverside Brookfield.
Well, back in 1968, I was in the cooperative education program, and I was also working in a restaurant at the time. And they decided that they were going to try a pilot program in home economics for boys. And they asked several of us if we would be interested in being the quote guinea pigs.
Yeah.
And there are quite a few of us still around doing the same things that we were doing back then, only with a little bit more knowledge now because of it. It was an experience that was well worthwhile, and I recommend it to anyone who might be interested in a career in home economics.
Right. Well, Mrs. Kelly would be very proud of you. I know Mrs. Kelly was the instructor of that first boys' foods class, and she has many students that have gone on and succeeded in the culinary world. George Mack was also here, and he's a buddy of yours.
George and I went to college together.
That's right.
For a good portion of our careers.
Yeah.
So
Pretty
George
nice.
Right, George is currently at the College of DuPage.
Right.
Okay, we are starting to simmer here, so what I'm going to do is simply place the colander on top. Actually, I've got a little too much liquid, so I'm going to hold the colander up and drop the egg through. Now, if the egg doesn't go through, all you have to do is shake the colander a little bit, and it will drop itself into the simmering liquid.
Smells good.
Now, depending upon how much you want in there, some people like a lot of egg, some people like a little bit of egg. I'm going to stop right there. And as you can see, it creates a little dumpling on the top. Doesn't take long. The egg will cook very quickly. And simply serve it to your guests. As such. And a few snow peas for garnish.
Okay, so the snow peas serve as the garnish. So
Right,
that
and they
looks
also
wonderful.
add a little bit of flavor to it. They make it a little bit on the crunchy side. And if you wanted to, as I said before, in some of the Chinese and the Oriental restaurants, they might use soy sauce, or they might use a little bit of Worcestershire sauce in order to flavor it.
That looks good, and I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to have a little taste of this.
Help yourself.
Okay, thank you. This looks
Now,
delicious.
I'm going to move this off to the side so that we can continue on.
Okay.
I'll move this off too because I'm going to need this burner. Now, the second form of soup that I indicated that I was going to show you today is a cream soup. And a lot of people tend to
Delicious.
like cream soups. Cream soups are very hearty, they're very filling, and they are also very rich, also very high in calories.
This was delicious.
Thank you. The basis for the cream soup is quite similar to that for a clear soup, except that in the end we are going to thicken it. What we need to do is we need to make our thickening agent. And for the thickening agent, we're going to use a roux, which is simply a mixture of equal parts of fat, which I used margarine for, and flour. I have melted down approximately 2 pounds of margarine here. Now, the nice part about making the roux is that it will last in the refrigerator for several months. So you can always make extra. It's better to make extra than to not make enough and to be scrambling around at the last minute trying to thicken your soup by putting things together. What we need to do is, once this is melted, we need to add the equal portion of flour to it. Could you possibly hand me a whip?
Okay.
Thank you. Now I'm going to be blending the flour into the melted shortening or the melted margarine. Now you can use butter for this if you prefer, but butter will tend to make it much richer.
And should you whisk briskly?
Well, you really don't need to unless it's to the point of getting too hot. Now I only put half the flour in there. I've got another 4 cups of flour to put in there.
Okay.
Now when you season your soups, if they're clear soups, feel free to use whatever seasoning you want in terms of white pepper, black pepper, etc. But when you're making a cream soup, what you need to do is you need to season it with white pepper, because otherwise, if you season it with black pepper, the specks will show in the soup when you serve it. Now this is enough for probably thickening 10 batches of soup. But I decided to make it in a large enough quantity so that I would be able to save it for future use.
Here, it looks like it helps to be strong.
Yeah, it does. What you need to do is you need to cook it a little bit so that you cook the flour and the starch flavoring out of it. If you don't cook it long enough, chances are your soup will taste a little bit on the gummy side. Now, in the pot over here, the small pot, I have simmering some chopped broccoli in chicken stock with some onion. And that's the basis for the cream of broccoli soup that we are going to make. Now what I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to remove the roux from the burner and transfer it to another container so that I can use this pot in order to make the broccoli soup. And let's see, I believe I had a bowl here.
Okay.
There we go. Now this adds very easily, a little bit at a time, to your boiling liquid to thicken your soup. Now I'm going to transfer the broccoli to the larger pot so that we can add our cream at a later date. Now for my cream today, I'm using half and half, only because it seems to give a better taste. If you're calorie conscious and if you are also worried about cholesterol, what you can do is you can use the non-dairy products that they have on the market these days. They don't have as rich a flavor to them, but they will provide you with a cream soup. Now I have my simmering liquid with the broccoli and the onion. You can do it one of two ways. You can either strain the broccoli and the onion out and then thicken your liquid and put the broccoli and onion back in, or you can thicken it as you go. And that's the way we're going to do it now. We're going to simply add a little bit of roux. And we add it a little bit at a time, because if we add too much at a time, chances are your soup will become too thick, and then you won't be able to thin it down except with some more additional hot chicken stock.
Okay, that's looking very good from this angle.
As you can see, the soup is starting to thicken. Now this part of it might seem a little bit on the thick side when you are preparing it, but don't forget that you still have to add the cream to it. And the cream will thin it down.
Dennis, a large portion of your career has been spent in the pastry end of the culinary field, hasn't it?
Well, I've spent quite a few of the last years that I've been in the restaurant business, working in the bakery end and the pastry end of it. Just kind of gives me a little bit more of a rounded career. I can do quite a number of different tasks should I need to. Okay, now as you see, that's quite thick.
Yes, it is.
Okay, over here I have approximately 1/4 of half and half. Now the half and half should be warm. It doesn't need to be boiling hot when you add it, but it should be warm. Because if you add it ice cold out of the refrigerator, the chances are you could curdle your soup.
And you're constantly whisking the whole time.
Constantly stirring it so that it's not burning to the bottom and so that it's not continuing to lump up when you added the roux. Now that's probably about the right consistency that you would want. Now what I would do is turn this down to a low temperature and let it cook, I would say for approximately 5 to 7 minutes, so that you cook the starch flavor out of it. If you don't cook the starch flavor out of it, you're going to get kind of a pasty taste to it. Should we ladle some up as it is?
I think that would be a
Okay.
great idea.
Now this is a versatile way to make cream soups. You can use any number of different items. You can use broccoli, you can use asparagus, you can use spinach, mushrooms. You can use a number of different items, and they'll all come up with the same results. You'll get a nice thick cream soup. Now, some of the restaurants, if they make it with real half and half, I even worked in a place where we used 18% cream, which is it's heavier than half and half. We would put a little pat of butter on the top when you serve it.
Oh boy.
So
Even richer.
a little bit higher in the cholesterol aspect of it. But here we have a cream soup, and then we have our clear soup. And do we have one more serving bowl? Maybe we can scoop out a little bit of
think we
the
do.
chicken soup that I had.
Well, we could put it in a cup
Okay. Let's see.
and have a cup of soup instead
Cup
of a
of
bowl
soup.
of soup here.
And we'll do a little bit of the soup with the vegetables in it.
Okay.
And the noodles, and we'll see how that looks. Now I like to use the wide noodles, but you can use whatever particular noodles you prefer when you're making your soup. I like wide noodles only because I think they taste a little bit better.
Yeah, they look nice too.
And they look more home style.
Yeah, they do. That looks
And
great.
there we go. A little bit too much, but that's the third type of soup.
Okay, so we have our 3 soups here, and they smell wonderful, and I'm going to get to taste the rest of these. Our time is just about up. I certainly appreciate your being here today, and I'm going to taste this and before we get off the air so I can let everyone know how good it is.
Need some fresh bread with it. Fresh bread and butter.
Wonderful, delicious. And thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Good. This is Julie Morley from Alumni Kitchen.
If you would like to receive a copy of today's Alumni Kitchen recipe or other recipes from Alumni Kitchen shows, please write to Alumni Kitchen, Riverside Brookfield High School, Riverside, Illinois, 60546. Attention AV Department. We look forward to hearing from you.